Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. Somebody's turned the big light in the sky on today. Um, the difference it makes out here is quite incredible. Really, just shows things up better when the light's good. I'm just going to whiz round a few plants that didn't necessarily film that well when I did the everything in bloom. I know it was only a couple of days ago, but that was in poor light. Today we've got some better light. So it's just really trying to pick out the difference it makes. So the colours, when you get a bit of lighting on them, they just show so much better. Not sure why that spike's still there. I did say I was going to take it off. I'm going to be soppy now. I just can't. It's just too attractive. And the bulb it's come out of is quite strong, and having just watered, in the middle of watering my normal pots today, and there's a good root system on the plant, so we'll let it go. It just looks too nice. We have got a very, sorry, I'm having to change hands here to get in here. Don't know how close I can get, but that's Restreppia gutulata, and that doesn't bloom very often, and the last time it bloomed it lasted 2 days and fell off, so I'm hoping it's going to hang in there a bit better this time. Lovely patterning. Unfortunately that's one of the plants to go, so that's actually going to the Orchid Society tomorrow, because I'm highly liable to not only shift it but get a few pennies for it, simply because it's actually in bloom, so people can see what they're getting. So that's to go tomorrow. And I've been looking at my list of plants to go, and quite a few of them are going to go to the Orchid Society tomorrow. They're just using up space for me unnecessarily. You might disagree with some of the ones that are going to go, but I mean my Maxillaria, I don't think it's called that anymore, if I can get that out. Sophronitis, that's a really good plant, that's going to go. It's got a bloom on it, which always gives it a better chance. As long as that bloom can hang in there till tomorrow, we get that one. And one that got missed, this was just opening with everything in bloom, and I forgot. It's not fully open yet though, not really. It's got a few more buds to come. That's a no ID Phalaenopsis type dendrobium. Comes out virtually pure white. Greenish tinges to start with, and then that fades quite quickly. And out of the corner of my eye up there, so I can't see what the hell I'm filming here, we do have a splash of colour. So I think that Cattleya is starting to open now, and that's not the set of buds I was expecting to open first. I was expecting that set up there to open first. But certainly within the next 3 or 4 days we should have quite a lot of those buds open. The Make looks so much better in the light, and if you remember, you might even have to go back and have a look. When I filmed that 2 days ago, they just opened and the petals and sepals had virtually no patterning at all. Well, they have now. It doesn't take long for that to come through. So they're looking better in just a couple of days. There's quite a few more to come on that as well. And I'll see if I can focus on this, because this, I noticed when I filmed this was out of focus. This is the Tolumnia peach, and the peach colour is just starting to come through on some of the blooms. So as I say, they open virtually pure yellow, yeah, and then certainly within a week they get their full coloration, which gives them their name, which at the moment, you know, if you looked at your first spike opening, you'd think, well, where's the peach then? It comes later. It's not an immediate colour, it comes a bit later. And what else looks good with a bit of light on it? Laelia anceps. Well, that's going to look good whether it's in bright light or not. And just up here there is a crack of yellow. So at long last one of the yellow twinkles is opening. I didn't even expect any blooms on that. That's such a tiny little piece. 2 little pieces actually. They broke off when I potted it last time. I think they didn't break off. I had some older bulbs that I wanted to take off, and in doing that I ended up with some pieces, which is often the case. But so we got the bringing up the rear twinkle, the last of the twinkles to come out, the yellow one. The one in the pot's down here, that's still lagging behind. And looking round, this top shelf is cleared off at the moment. As I said, I'm just letting a few things drain, one of which is this monster down here. This is my Brassia species that I got at Burnham's last year. It's in a bucket basically. It's absolutely enormous and it's clumsy to handle, but I chose this one because it had 5 new growths and they're all heading up to maturity now. I suspect every single one of those will produce a spike. It's got a strange growth habit. If you look at the mature bulb behind, which was on there when I got it, that was one of the ones in bloom, the leaves all come out at the top and one of them never seems to straighten up properly. So I was getting a bit worried about mine not straightening up, although this one has. But then when I looked at the older bulbs, that seems to be the way it goes basically. But yeah, this one round here seems to be straightening up as well. But as I say, there's 5 growths on there. It's a beast of a plant, and quite honestly those spikes are 2/3 of a metre. And if I get 5 spikes on here, I'm going to have to stake it, unfortunately, because they look gorgeous arched over. But where would I put it? The new growths are all round the edge. The spikes are just going to head off away from the plant. It would take up a whole shelf. Yes, it would be stunning, but I can't afford a whole shelf for one plant. So they're going to have to go upright. And with Brassias, it's incredibly important to get those stakes in early. You need to get the stake growing upwards almost from day, well, I won't say day one because it's tucked down in the bract, but you know, once you can get hold of them, it pays to stake them, because as soon as the buds start to form, they develop their aspect. So if you leave your stake late, you'll get half your blooms come out upside down by moving it halfway through the growth. So I'll give that one some attention, because I think that's going to be a bit of a showstopper. If it does produce 5 spikes, that's going to be pretty good. And the other one I got at Burnham's, that produced a growth from a strange place, part of the older plant, which I thought, well, we'll have some of that. And it's got another one coming out the side, which is going to produce aerial roots, but with a root system like that, I really don't care. That didn't have what I class as a good root system when I potted it, but it certainly has now. So yeah, we should get 2 spikes on that, and they'll be well staggered apart, because this bulb is well advanced and this one's only just starting. So that's good. The other thing I wanted to say is this is an experiment, because obviously the plants I've got here have come off that top shelf. And I can hear you muttering to yourself, what the hell is a Masdevallia doing up there? What it's doing up there is hopefully getting a lot more light. Not too much, but a lot more. On the grounds that this is Masdevallia ignea. It's one of my daughter's favourite blooms, and I haven't seen this. I think it had a couple of blooms when I got it, and it hasn't bloomed since. And having chatted to that Masdevallia grower and hybridizer, he said any Masdevallia you get that looks strong and healthy and produces a lot of new growth that won't bloom, chuck it in the light. He found one of these growing in the wild in a field. It had no shade and it was in full bloom and it was healthy. The difference, it was very, very high up, where the atmosphere starts to get a bit thinner and cool, very cool. But it was getting sun directly on it, and it was in full bloom. So he said, if ever you have trouble with Masdevallias, get them in the light. Don't go mad. Don't take them from deep shade and hang them up in the sunshine. But so this is an experiment to see if it works for me. So this one's now on a high shelf. It's tucked in behind other plants, so it's getting filtered light. And obviously I've got a layer of shade netting on. But this is the sort of size it should bloom. And there's a guy at the Wessex Orchid Society, when they have their show, which is in March, he's got a plant probably at least 4 times the size of this. It's in a bowl and it's been in there about 5 years and never been repotted, and it often takes an award at the show every year, because every year in March it's in full bloom. So come on. I'm not putting it in competition with that guy, but that's when his blooms. He keeps his outside a lot of the year. I've always said that your eyes play tricks on you. The strength of light outside, even in a place that gets no sun, is going to be stronger than anywhere in your house. It just is. So this is getting a lot more light to see if it will trigger some spikes. I'll keep my eye on the colour of the leaves. We don't want them going all pale and yellow, but it's a wait and see. You know, I've got no idea whether that's going to work or not. This silly little thing here, this is the Rhynchostylis gigantea. I don't know what to do with that, because that spike is useless where it is. And I don't know whether I'm going to be able to lift it to get it up over the edge of the basket. But at the moment, that's going to try and arch downwards straight into the lava rock. There's no escape for it. So I don't know what to do with that at the moment. I mean, I'm getting rid of those plants anyway, so I'm not particularly fussed one way or the other. But as it's trying to bloom, it might be nice to let it. And the only way I can think to do it is actually to take this out of the basket and temporarily put it in something else. Because these are to go, they're not going in the basket with the lava rock. I'm certainly not trying to post that. So they would probably get bare rooted to give to somebody else anyway. So if they've got to come out in the not too distant future, perhaps they better come out now and just go in something temporary. That way at least we'll get to see the blooms. It's not going to be a magnificent spike. You know, there's probably only about 8 blooms on it, which isn't much for this type of plant. That's a pretty poor blooming, but bearing in mind it hasn't done it for years. And the other thing I noticed is the spikes on the Encyclia cordigera, excuse me waggling the camera, are starting to push out quite nicely now. That's the only one I can get at the moment. I'm not getting the plant down today. It's not its turn, but the spikes are progressing on that, so we'll have blooms on that. Oh, getting tangled up in anceps spikes. That is its only downside, Laelia anceps, is just the sheer length of the spikes. And some people actually commented they'd never seen anceps spikes that long. Well, I've seen them quite a bit longer than that. So don't think that's as long as they can get. I've seen them heading up towards 1.5 meters. And often, you know, when you get a really mature plant, typically you'll get 3 blooms. But on a really mature plant, I mean, there's a guy at the, well, he's a joint member, Bournemouth and Wessex. He bought one in probably around this time last year. Lovely mature plant. I think he had 5 spikes, and some of the spikes had like 5 or 6 blooms on. And he'd clustered them. You know, he'd arranged those in such a way that they grew upright so that they all came out next to each other. That was stunning. Yeah. But I'll live with this for now. This is good enough for me. At least I've got the flipping thing to bloom. So yeah, so that'll do for today. Probably no video tomorrow because I've got the Orchid Society meeting, and because I'm now a committee member I have to get there 2 hours earlier, so I've got to be there for 12, and I allow an hour for travelling, so I'm on the road. That's not early in the day, but I have got other things to do before I go, including getting all my plants together and packing them up in such a way that I can take them without damaging them. So I've got a bit to do tomorrow. So if there isn't one tomorrow, I'll be back on Sunday for the Sunday morning chat. Subject, title, as yet undetermined. Haven't got a clue. I haven't even put a thought into it yet. I'm sure I'll come up with something, even if it's just half an hour's waffle. But coloration on this, should be heading towards similar to this within a week or so. But the beauty of this one, the Golden Sunray Sunrise, without a stutter, Martin, has bigger blooms. So that's a bonus from the point of view. But this one has many more. Yeah? So smaller, similar colour, but more of them. And certainly that's the first Tolumnia that for me has ever had 3 spikes on at the same time. So yeah, so some good stuff going on, and I've got to finish me watering off now. I'm 2/3 of the way through. I always think that when I've got all that lot done and all that lot done and all this lot done and all that lot done, and then I look round here and think, oh, I've still got loads to do, but I haven't, because those top 2 shelves are all holy clay pots. It's not their turn. And the issue is clouded by mounts. And when you come down onto this shelf, there's only 4 pots, and there's only a couple on the ground floor, and one of those is going to the Orchid Society tomorrow. And then you come round to there, just a few pots, and then you're round the corner to this bit. So I haven't got much left to do, although it feels like I've still got loads. So another half an hour will see it done. Then we can think about some lunch. Tummy's starting to rumble and all that. I tend to get carried away out here sometimes, and I sort of stop and think, oh, I'm feeling a bit hungry, and I look at the time and it's like 2:30, and I haven't had anything to eat since 8 o'clock in the morning when I had my breakfast. So I will crack on, and as I said, I probably won't post anything tomorrow. I'll take the camera with me in case there's a good show on the competition benches, and then if there is, I can film that and pop that up tomorrow evening. So I'll see how I go with that, and see you next time. Thanks for dropping by.